so far? Statistics. It was the UN in the late 40s and early 50s that said we need common statistics to assess the economic performance of countries in different parts of the world. One of the Nobel Prize winners, in fact, two of them, Richard Stone, working with James Mead, laid out the frame for economic statistics, which is still with us today, the SNA, the Standard System of National Accounts. It's not perfect, and indeed we were hearing the other day from ESCAP that some of the standardization has been too much given by the needs and possibilities of the developed countries and not taking enough account of the statistical needs of poorer, statistically weaker countries. So that may be something which I hope in the Asia world, with your tradition, the Indian tradition of statistics is fantastic. There's other countries also. There's opportunities for the next phase of UN contributions to take account of the differing needs for statistics in different parts of the world. I don't think I'm going to mention any of the others. It's a summary list. Louis said we've not only looked at the positives, we've taken account of some of the negatives. The late reaction to the Washington Consensus, Louis himself elaborated. Weak response to the special needs of the least developed countries. Early on, the first UNCTAD, the needs of the least developed countries and the needs for greater equality in global development was emphasized. And the UN has come up with many proposals, 3 major conferences on the least developed countries. There, the weakness has been more in the first UN not following through than in the second or third UN elaborating what needs to be done. Too little done to introduce cultural aspects into the development equation. The tardy and weak reaction to HIV/AIDS. They're the second UN. WHO, even my dear UNICEF, were caught up into battles within the UN about the action that ought to be taken on HIV/AIDS. And the result is that even today, too little is being done. And finally, an issue which is really with virtually every country in Asia, but I'm sad to say also Africa and Latin America, inadequate attention to inequalities of income and wealth internationally and nationally. We were at the Economic and Social Development Board this morning, and I'm glad to say that some of the Thai leaders there, we were talking to the Deputy Director General, and she said that this issue of rising inequality in Thailand is a real issue. Well, we might again come back to what could be done internationally in support of countries and that. But our overall summary of a series of books that have looked at the intellectual contributions at the UN says that the balance sheet shows a small but significant surplus. Some of us say we shouldn't have put the word small in, but that shows a certain debate amongst the co-directors of the project and perhaps a certain modesty. The UN has led the way with many fundamental ideas, more often than is realized. I just don't know what public opinion is, what professional opinion is in Thailand. But I tell you, in the West, they see the UN in the economic and social area as marginalized. That's not the way we read the history. It's not, we believe, the evidence that we've identified. And in the key point, the UN has often been ahead of the World Bank and the IMF, even though since the 1980s, The IMF and the World Bank have received most donor support and most finance. I wish I could say that the G20 meeting in March this year, sorry, the 1st of April this year, had seen the light and had said much of the international billions of dollars of stimulus would be channeled more broadly through the international system. In fact, most of it was channeled through the IMF. I think there was 20 billion to be given to the poorer countries. Very unbalanced and very narrow. The Washington consensus ideas have still not been challenged anywhere near deeply enough in those institutions. Louis.
Thank you, Richard. We have been writing a future-oriented intellectual history. So far, you have heard the past. We now see the future, although the future is ever-changing. When we finish this book, UN Ideas That Changed the World, the Great Recession, the present crisis, was just starting. In the third edition of this book, because the second printing has already been taking place, in the third printing, I think we should have a chapter on the Great Recession and ways to get out of it, in which, you remember I was talking about the 1953 reports, about a global Marshall Plan? Well, of course, we need a global stimulant program. And we have only seen national stimulus programs, including, of course, in Thailand, as we heard this morning. There is a great lack of global demand in the world economy. And that is because the United States is spending all its money on its own economy. And your countries, East Asian countries, you have learned from the 1997 crisis. You are not going to go through this humiliation once again. You have built up huge financial reserves. So, lack of demand is global. And I believe that if we were to put the 10 global challenges on the board again, that would be one of them. Now, the 10 we have here, I mean, I'm not going to go through all of them because I see that the attention span of my dear friends in front of me is diminishing. And so I can, of course, jump up and down, but that does not really help. Let me give one or two examples. Look at number 2. Strengthening global governance.